Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Mark Schillinger, founder of the nonprofit organization, the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. It's a rite of passage adventure camp designed to help young men ages 13 to 20 prepare for the challenges of the young adult world. I'm also the founder of Challenging Teenage Sons, an organization devoted to helping parents of teenagers have more caring and cooperative relationships. Today's podcast title is Parents Need a Rite of Passage Just as Much as Their Son. Likely that you have no idea what a rite of passage for parents is. I mean, honestly, how many of you have ever heard of that? You probably haven't heard of it because it's probably not being done in too many places in the world, if at all. So let me start this podcast by asking you a question before we go deeper into what a rite of passage is for parents. Have you noticed that your old style of parenting is mostly not working, meaning yelling, acting frustrated, doing on-the-spot takeaway punishments, things like that? When my son Gabe was in high school in the 1990s and early 2000s, he could have been such an accomplished high school student, but he chose to hang out with friends, play video games, watch TV, listen to music, smoke some weed or drink alcohol. I mean, that's what he did. I loved Gabe and I loved my daughter, Becca. She was also a teenager at the time, and they loved me. It wasn't about love. We had plenty of love. They knew I loved them more than anything else in this world. And I was contributing to the suffering they were going through because I couldn't really guide them through the comfort zone of teenagehood into the unstable territory of young adulthood. I was not their guide. I wanted to be, and they wouldn't receive what I was saying because I was so outrageous a lot of the time. So believe me, whatever I was doing back then, until I got enlightened about it, it was not working. And what I was doing was basically raising my children the same way my loving dad raised me. And it may have worked back in the day, meaning in the 50s, but it certainly wasn't working when I was doing this with them back then. To help my son Gabe and I restore a loving and cooperative relationship, I started the YMEW, Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, back in the 1990s. I realized that I was caught up in a worldwide confusion about how parents needed to raise their teens. The rules for parenting teens changed dramatically back then, but nobody knew about it, and I didn't either, believe me. I did realize that the world was in a transition from what I call ancestral intelligence into artificial intelligence. What I mean by ancestral intelligence is the way that humans have evolved over the past approximately 1 million years to get to this moment. And specifically, what I mean by ancestral intelligence getting us to this moment is the way that humans have evolved to become the caring, connected, compassionate, and cooperative creatures that most of us are. What I mean by artificial intelligence is what humans are currently transitioning into, which is a culture that's filled with amazing benefits and wonderful convenience. And it's also creating isolation, anxiety, depression, suicides, boredom, loneliness, and addiction to weed, alcohol, and definitely and especially digital devices. My epiphany from this realization was that parents needed a new set of tools in order to prevent their families from being isolated within their own homes. Because basically, everybody was on their devices, in their bedrooms, and not developing those virtues of compassion, connection, caring, and cooperation, which all families must have in order to survive and thrive. I saw that young people, like my son, were getting hypnotized into a world that caused them to excessively seek pleasure and to consistently avoid pain, like doing their chores or going to bed on time, waking up for school on time, things like that. And then I understood that when parents reverted to using the techniques that they were raised on, like becoming intense, raising out their voices, giving up and out punishments, these methods only cause their teens to further withdraw from them. Does this sound familiar to you if you're trying to parent a teen using old school methods? So about 7 or 8 years after starting the YMEW in the year 2000, I consistently observed the transformation that young men were making at the event because of their realization that they needed to become more responsible for their own well-being. I figured out that these positive changes that the young men were making at the Ultimate Weekend were short-lived if they were returning to a home where their parents were not educated in the same methodology or technology that their sons had learned from the mentors at the YMW. And that methodology is what I created, a method called the Right Way Method for Family Unity, which we'll talk about later in this podcast. So that's when I had that epiphany. Parents needed a rite of passage. Why? Because I saw that it was not reasonable for parents to think that by sending their sons to a weekend initiation, their sons were going to become resilient and responsible young men overnight. I knew that if the parents learned the same technology that we teach their sons, they'd be able to speak to their sons that our mentors were using, which actually motivated the young men to do the right things. And our mentors never have to yell or punish using this method. Although parents still had the ancestral intelligent instincts to raise their teens, they didn't have the technology to help them through this transition from the old ways into the new ways of artificial intelligence. They were suffering from feeling disconnected to their teens, who they loved as much as I loved my son Gabe. The old methods of parenting were breaking down, and parents then didn't know how to adapt. Why? Because the companies responsible for bringing AI into the world didn't warn parents about how to adapt to this technological era that humanity was rapidly entering. Believe me, these experts who designed the technology knew the harmful effects it would have on our families and humanity. So I created a way or a method that could help parents navigate through the roadblocks that prevented them from raising their teens. As I mentioned earlier, most of those obstacles were coming in the form of digital distractions, whether it was social media, video games, or streaming content. And on top of that, young people then and now, of course, have instant access to alcohol, weed, and who knows what else, all of which further focuses their minds on outer entertainment and away from inner responsibility and inner fulfillment. I created a rite of passage event for parents that had two strongly interconnected parts, the same as what happens at the YMEW, these same two interconnected parts, which are having mentors and having a way. A method or way to help parents channel their instincts to raise their teens effectively, and using mentors, people who are trained to implement the method I created, both at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend and with me at the Ultimate Parenting Weekend, which is what I call the Parenting Rite of Passage, the Ultimate Parenting Weekend. So the Parenting Weekend, yes, I'm there, and there's also mentors, and yes, we're using this way. Essentially, the rite of passage for the young men and for their parents is like drawing a line in the sand. Visualize some clean sand, and now you have a stick and you're drawing a line, and you're standing on one side of it. On one side of the land represents of the sand, the line in the sand represents the past family dynamics between the parents and their son, meaning whatever dysfunctional or functional patterns of communication and behaving that were going on in the home. The other side of the line represents life after a rite of passage, which is a new family lifestyle that's geared towards the well-being of everyone in the family, so that everybody's contributing to the well-being of the home. The rite of passage for the sons motivates those young men to successfully launch into the adult world. The rite of passage for parents helps the parents create a new family dynamic that fosters more care, respect, and cooperation amongst everyone. The ultimate goal for this parenting rite of passage is to show parents how to efficiently mentor their teens to become happy, productive, and mindful adults, especially because it's harder than ever to raise teens in this era of digital dominance and basically endless, mindless entertainment. The method helps you, as parents, get through this transition. I like to say that the rite of passage for parents kind of functions like jumper cables that you can use to restart a car. I mean, when a car needs a boost, it usually has some charge left in the battery, but not enough to get that car going. The rite of passage for parents recharges their natural instincts so that they have the energy and a clear roadmap, which I give them, so that they can move their family in the right direction. Let's talk more about this ultimate parenting weekend, this rite of passage for parents. It occurs outdoors on the same property as where their sons are attending the ultimate weekend, but it's far removed from where the sons are. The parents and the sons never, ever see each other at all. During the ultimate parenting weekend, parents embark on a journey of self-discovery, including letting go of past parenting and maybe past marriage failures and anything else they need to release so that they can start a new approach to raising their sons in this era of digital domination. Through open forum discussions, ceremonies, group activities, handouts, role playing, and the use of my mentors there with me, parents learn how to communicate to a teen brain, how to set boundaries, how to use effective consequences, not punishments, and ultimately, parents learn how to foster deeper connection with their teens by becoming way more skillful and organized, using their authority and their influence. And the parents are trained to do this all with calmness, clarity, brevity, and certainty. Because in this method, there's no need for yelling or being demanding. The young men will respond. So when I speak to parents about the ultimate parenting weekend, they'll often ask me questions and, have concerns about some of the things that happen here. Well, one of the things that happens at the ultimate parenting weekend is that parents go through a ceremony where they need to let go of their son as a boy. Yes, that's what I said. A ceremony where they need to let go of their son as a boy because it's so tempting and alluring to keep them as boys for as long as possible so that we feel better as parents. And they say that lovingly without any judgment to any parent who does that, because I did that for my son and my daughter as well. However, in this era of digital dominance, we need to get them into being more like young adults sooner, not later. So the parents start to see their son as a young man, not as a child. This ceremony begins the process where parents stop doing so many things for their son and start acting more like mentors, which means showing their sons, like a mentor would, how to do the things they need to know that will lead them towards a healthy independence. And we do this at the Ultimate Parenting Weekend by employing an ancestral style of letting go of past emotional wounds so that parents can move on to get present to what's really happening now in their homes. It's a powerful and proven way to accomplish this goal. Watching the faces of the parents before they grieve and after they grieve, and it's like seeing two different people. After the ceremony, parents look like they're younger and calmer and ready to learn the new technology in order to have the family of their dreams. Oh, and another thing about the Ultimate Parenting Weekend, it's really formal and there's no fear of speaking freely. Right? We're outside. You want to dress informally, and everything we do there is informal, including speaking freely. Here's an example. Last year, one of the parents raised his hand because he wanted to talk about how he really felt about his teen son. At first, he couldn't get the words out. He got tears in his eyes, and then he slowly looked down at the ground and became frustrated because he couldn't, or wouldn't, say what he was feeling. All the parents there supported this dad by remaining quiet and not interrupting his process. And then all of a sudden, he blurted out, "I'm not a bad person." And then he said it again, "I'm not a bad person." And he just had more and more tears falling from his face. A few moments passed. Then he pulled himself together enough to say that he really loved his kids. He paused for another second or two, and then he let it rip. He just pushed out these words, "There are some days where I just want to kill my son. He's so fucking hard to work with." And then that guy cried, and he cried, and we all consoled him. And when he was done, really done, and everybody was quiet, I asked everybody, how many of you feel like killing your kids or your spouses? Everybody raised their hands immediately. I mean, It's like their hands shot up so fast they looked like they were marionettes, as if somebody's pulling strings up. When we all saw that, everyone bursted out in laughter, including the dad. It was hysterical. I mean, we laughed our asses off. We brought humor to a difficult situation, which is this: parents love their children and they sometimes just don't want to be around them for any reason at all. So, at the Ultimate Parenting Weekend, we allow for full expression. We don't stay stuck on the past, though. Like our tribal ancestors, we keep moving forward. This feature of the rite of passage for parents usually can't be done in traditional therapy, especially with dudes like fathers and sons. And even when it's achieved, it can often take months or years to let that grieving or letting go really out. And because we're out in nature and we've all turned off our devices, we're not distracted. Yes, parents can look at their devices on breaks, of course, but we're not distracted when we're doing the work. We're actually present for ourselves and for the other parents. It's almost like we've magically reverted back to the best qualities of tribal life. We all focus on each other's needs and we all take good care of each other. Nobody's blamed or shamed. And ultimately, everybody's respectfully given the wisdom and tools they need to learn how to use their authority and influence in more skillful ways with their children. I have to say that I was lucky enough to spend a very brief period of time with a small tribe in Kenya. I got a chance to learn customs and traditions. So the method I teach, I have to say, includes a critical dose of tribal family wisdom. I'm now going to briefly talk about the method or the way that I created. It's called the Rite Way for Family Unity. And you can learn more about this method on other podcasts and in my blogs. However, I just want to tell you something briefly about Rite. Rite is not a political affiliation like right or left parties or anything like that. I have no desire to talk about politics ever. Rite stands for 5 virtues: respect, intelligence, grace, humor, and true. These 5 virtues are what guides the parents to overcome the conflicts with their teens because it shows them how to use their natural instincts in a way that will diminish conflict and increase cooperation. All right, so as I wind down this podcast, I want to be soberingly clear with you. In this rapid transition into artificial intelligence, all those things that are distracting our teens, parents must have a clear path or way, or they'll find their children being led astray and not being able to achieve their true potential. So this method we use helps families enjoy more productive and loving relationships. And it's based on the sciences of personal growth, stress management, parent-child bonding, positive discipline, adolescent brain development, and as I said before, a critical dose of tribal family wisdom. The other second aspect I mentioned that the parent rite of passage employs are mentors. Using mentors and elders to guide parents and children is the ancestral way to help families and communities thrive. Having trained mentors and elders assist me creates a safe and powerful group energy to inspire, motivate, and support each parent to implement the way. Now, here's the best part about having a parenting rite of passage while their son is attending their own rite of passage. At the conclusion of both events, the young men graduates rejoin the loving company of their parents in this special ceremony. And they're all, meaning the parents and the young men, are ready to practice the essential family values of mutual trust and respect. The parents and their sons have learned the same technology so that they can remain calm, communicate respectfully, and cooperate efficiently. And by doing so, they'll survive and even thrive in this transition from the old ways to the new ways. It's a tear-jerking ceremony at the end, which, by the way, if you watched the end of the CNN show where we were featured, the show This Is Life with Lisa Ling, season 7, episode 2, called The Lost Boys, meaning boys are getting lost in their devices. If you watch that show, you'll see the live footage of this final ceremony where we reunite parents and their sons. There's no editing. It's pretty tear-jerking to feel the renewed love that everybody has for each other. I just remembered one quick thing I want to add. Some parents tell me that the ultimate parenting weekend sounds too stressful in the sense that they'll be out in nature for 2 hours on a Friday night and 3 hours on a Sunday morning. They're concerned that the weather will be too hot, or they'll have to stand or sit in the ground. They won't have enough drinks or food to eat. So let me address that while we're talking about the parent rite of passage. Yes, we are outdoors the whole time, just like their sons. And you can all bring your coziest, most comfortable outdoor chair. You can bring all the snacks, all the drinks, any umbrella you need to have, like whatever you need to be comfortable, please bring it. The ultimate parenting weekend is not a survival camp. Okay. That said, there's something very magical about having parents and their sons close by in an ancestral activity like a rite of passage, learning how to help their family adapt to stress and to thrive. This is an important note, by the way, before I close. It is not mandatory that parents have to attend the parent rite of passage because their sons are attending the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. However, I strongly recommend that you do this. It's been my experience to observe that when parents and their sons are using the same method, the same technology that encourages the shared values like respect, cooperation, and resilience, they have a much higher probability that they can achieve the true family unity that they all desire, meaning you as parents and your teens. Everybody wants to have a close family unit, of course. It's a strong, maybe the strongest instinctual bond humans have. And to make sure that the parents have constant access to the tools I teach them at the Ultimate Parenting Weekend, I include an online course that I taught a few years ago. I created this online course after our work was featured on the CNN show, This is Life with Lisa Ling, because parents from all around the world wanted to know what I was doing to help parents and their sons have better relationships. So soon after the show aired, that's when I did a live 8-week course for parents. And this course, this 8-module course, includes everything that I teach at the Ultimate Parenting Weekend and much, much more. The advantage to the online course, which is included at the Ultimate Parenting Weekend, gives you access to all the information I teach anytime at your own convenience because it's right in your own home. If you want to learn more about the Ultimate Parenting Weekend and the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, contact me directly at info@challengingteenagesons.com. info@challengingteenagesons.com. I'll get you on our weekly email blogs so you can keep up with all the events that we host for parents and for young men. Just say you want to get on that list. If you have any other questions or concerns, please tell me. I love to personally respond to any inquiries that come in.